story of Pain and his philosophy is well known to those who have watched Naruto. He played a major role in this series and is arguably one of the best villains in all of anime. His philosophy of bringing people together through shared suffering is one that many believe to be crossing the line. However, I would argue that crossing the line is sometimes needed. Today I'll be breaking down Pain's philosophy as well as what caused him to think this way. Now let's dive into Pain's way of thinking. Pain's philosophy is a dark and radical approach to achieving peace, one that acknowledges the deep flaws in human nature and the inherent cycle of hatred. He seeks to break this cycle not through conventional means, but by imposing shared suffering upon the world, believing that only through universal pain can true peace be attained. His beliefs challenge the more optimistic views of characters like Naruto, who seek to achieve peace through understanding and connection rather than fear and control. To break down Pain's philosophy further, we can look into some of the major points that his thought process taps into. Let's start this by going over what Pain calls the cycle of hatred.
We're both just ordinary men who have been driven to seek vengeance in the name of justice. And if one comes to call vengeance justice, such justice will only breed further vengeance and trigger a vicious cycle of hatred.
To put simply, Pain believes that seeking vengeance is a never-ending cycle. There will always be someone who continues this cycle as they have in the past and will do in the future, which leads to the inevitability of conflict. If you think about our world and its history, what is one common theme? War. Throughout all time, there has been war and conflict across the globe. It seems to be in our human nature to rarely solve problems in a peaceful manner. Violence always seems to be the answer. So in order to stop this, Pain wants us all to know real pain and suffering in hopes to bring us together. Now, speaking of shared suffering, Pain understands that it doesn't always bring people together. In fact, he believes that some use it as a means to justify their violence. Simply put, you hurt me, I'll hurt you. So if suffering divides us, then how does he believe that it will bring us together? Using a quote from the Cycle of Hatred speech, Pain says,
I'm going to show the world what true pain is, and stop all wars with the terror that pain will inspire. I shall lead the world down the road to stability and to peace.
Pain's belief is that if we all share the same amount of suffering, we will then never want to experience it again, leading to the peace that he seeks. Hearing this for the first time made me think to myself, would a plan like that work? I would argue both yes and no. I believe it could potentially bring peace, however, it would be peace through fear. And would it be considered peace if everyone is in a constant state of fear? If the main goal is to end fighting, then this could be an answer. But if the goal is to create happiness, then I'd say this isn't the way. There is also the question of how long this peace would actually last. Pain also had an answer for that, as he mentions that in the future, the fear would diminish and reinforcement would be necessary. So even he understood that this solution would not be one that lasts forever, which brings us back to the inevitability of conflict. Now, I know this video is about Pain, but there is another example of someone using this tactic, so stick with me on this. Spoilers for Attack on Titan ahead. At the end of Attack on Titan, Eren Yeager shows the world the true power of the Titans. Yes, his original plan was to crush the world with the rumbling, but it didn't turn out that way. Instead, the world now lived in a state of fear while Paradis Island finally got the peace they were looking for. However, as the end credits roll, you see that over time the world falls back into conflict, showing that fear was not enough to keep the peace forever and that humans will do what we do best. Now bringing this back to Pain, and now that we understand Pain's philosophy, let's talk about how he got there. Pain, also known as Nagato, had a rough start with his parents being murdered by Leaf Shinobi and becoming an orphan. Things looked a little bit brighter when he met other orphans named Yahiko and Konan, and even more bright when they spent time with Jiraiya. Now a bit older, the trio decides to bring peace to their nation by forming a group named the Akatsuki. However, this is not the Akatsuki we are all familiar with. No, this group was meant to bring peace through opposing tyrannical leadership. This, however, did not go well as Hanzo of the Salamander, fearing Akatsuki's growing power, allied with Danzo of Konoha to eliminate them. He captured Konan and forced Nagato to choose between saving her or Yahiko. Refusing to let Nagato make that choice, Yahiko impaled himself on Nagato's kunai, dying in front of him. This event truly shattered Nagato to his core, pushing him towards a much darker path, thus bringing us to the birth of Pain. After Yahiko's death, Nagato fully embraced the persona of Pain, taking control of the Akatsuki and shifting its goals from peace through diplomacy to peace through control and domination. His new plan was to gather the tailed beasts to unleash their power amongst the nations, creating his ideal peace through shared suffering. Now, let's say Pain was successful in achieving his goal. Where would that leave him? Would he live out his days in nature like Thanos after eliminating half the universe? No. Pain would plan to oversee as a god.
I've grown from a man to a god. And since I'm a god, all my words and thoughts have become absolute.
The thing is that Pain actually had the power of a god. With his Rinnegan, he could use the Six Paths to be in multiple places as well as bring people back to life. Not to mention his immense power that could only be matched by few. It really does seem that he could reach god status. However, would that mean that his ideal world would now become a dictatorship? What kind of god would he have become? I could talk and theorize all day, but here are my final thoughts. Nagato was a victim of war. He grew up fast thanks to the pain he endured. He had noble goals and dreams until they were shattered by the world and its torment, corrupting his path and leading him towards a darker way of thinking. Pain understood how the world worked, but his defeated optimism had him create an answer that would only half solve his problem because the inevitability of conflict would always hang over him. To say he was right or wrong would be up for debate, as one's right could be someone else's wrong, as he tells Naruto that they share the same goal, but their way of achieving it is where they differ. Now, what are your thoughts on this? Do you think peace by control and fear would work better than connection and understanding? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching.